An update now for you on a story that we told you about earlier this week. We reported on the hundreds of millions of dollars being wasted on reconstruction efforts in Iraq, with relatively little progress to show. As it turns out, infrastructure failures in Iraq are not isolated incidents when it comes to U.S. efforts abroad, but more common occurrences. A report released on Monday shows a large amount of the U.S. government's $400 million investment in large-scale infrastructure in Afghanistan in just the year 2011 also went to waste. The report by the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan, John Sopko, found that, quote, a decade of struggle and bloodshed and more than $89 billion of U.S. appropriations for Afghan reconstruction has not cleared the landscape of serious problems. He went on to say the United States risks wasting billions of dollars if U.S.-funded development programs cannot be sustained either by the Afghan government or by continued donor support. It's an ominous warning to military officials looking for an exit strategy in an increasingly unpopular war. Audits of construction sites in Afghanistan discovered weaknesses in planning, coordination, and execution. That's a direct quote. Those are what's to blame for these wasted funds. So much so that several major construction projects that were supposed to be finished by mid-2013 are significantly behind schedule. 4 of the 5 delayed projects were to build power lines, another to construct provincial justice centers across the country. Meantime, in its final report to Congress, the Commission on Wartime found as much as $60 billion in U.S. funds have been lost to waste and fraud, both in Afghanistan and in Iraq over the past decade. Now, you might be wondering why U.S. military progress hinges on reconstruction efforts these days, considering we spent the better part of the decade bombing multiple regions of these countries. But it is, in fact, part of the effort to win the hearts and minds of the people and to establish democracy in the region from the ground up. In short, it's a tool, at least in theory, to try to curb the Taliban insurrection. Now, with the 2014 deadline looming, the question becomes, who will pick up the cost of these unfinished projects? The answer is looking more and more like U.S. taxpayers will be footing the bill. If lawmakers approve a request from President Obama for new reconstruction funding, the United States will have provided nearly $100 billion to rebuilding Afghanistan since the war began. So there you have it. 10 years in war and relatively little progress made, at least as far as rebuilding some of these countries. Meanwhile, back at home, American infrastructure is crumbling and the economy is not doing much better. I think the American people deserve a plan that lays out how much longer their taxes will go to build schools and roads in buildings in countries other than our own. I think these questions are not being asked often enough of our candidates for president and for Congress, the men and women who often sign off on the way the money in this country is appropriated.